Once upon a time, there was a Frenchman called Georges Méliès, who was making and selling movies to the whole world. Movies that contained the tricks and devices of a modern film show 20 years before I was born, and just a few years after the first movie was ever shown. In many ways, his is a sad story. So let's get the sad part over with by beginning at the end. This home is where Méliès spent the last few years of his life. A retired humorist, he lived here with a few other retired humorists. This is his wife, Madame Méliès, the real Madame Méliès. And this is Monsieur Méliès, the real Monsieur Méliès, almost. He's played by his son. Méliès composed this little waltz for her, oh, many years ago. I see me in your eyes when we're alone. My love much deeper lies. You are my own. The cares and scares and strife of life can never touch us. You are my wife. The movie business is one of the best ways of losing your shirt that has ever been invented. After years of success as a producer and director of wonderful films, this is all that is left to the man of whom W.D. Griffith once said, "I owe him everything." Méliès was forgotten after the First World War. He disappeared from sight like one of his own fade-outs. When he was found again, in 1928, he was the owner of this toy shop in the Gare Montparnasse. He'd started out in life as a magician and prestidigitator, and he thought he'd finish his career by making children happy. And now back to 1896. Méliès was the owner of the Robert Houdin Magic Theatre.
Dans sa présentation d'illusions fantasmagoriques, Monsieur Méliès. Premier tableau, jeu de main, tour de passe-passe, serpentin, pigeon vol. Deuxième tableau. Dans la boule de verre, le passé et l'avenir d'une tête couronnée.
Now some artistic views whose quality and historical value you will appreciate. L'Étude incurred the dislike of Madame de Pompadour, 35 years imprisonment. These slides were the first steps towards the art of movie showmanship which Méliès was about to create. Napoleon to deaf and dying grenadier, soldier, you have done well. No answer. Views of sheiks in Africa. Valentino is not yet among them. A gendarme, as usual, the cop has the last word. Méliès was a true Parisian boulevardier. One evening in 1896, as he was walking down the boulevards, he was struck by a poster that announced the first performance of the Louis Lumière cinema show. This was 10 years before the time of even the American Nickelodeon. He was about to see such films as the arrival of a train in a station, the breakfast of the baby, the launching of the ship, and the lovers' meeting, etc., etc. Impressed by the possibilities of this new art, he tried to buy one of Lumière's machines, which at the time were both camera and projector. "It's wonderful, Monsieur Lumière, simply wonderful," he said. "No, it's only a scientific curiosity, Monsieur Méliès. Could I buy one of your machines?" "My invention is not for sale," replied Lumière. "I'll give you 10,000 francs." "No, sir, my invention is not for sale." 20,000 francs. "Dear Monsieur Méliès, I have no desire to see you ruin yourself. The cinema has no commercial value. No future, Monsieur Lumière, but it puts the whole world within the grasp, within the reach of everyone." But Lumière was not to be swayed. A few months later, Méliès was beginning to experiment with his own camera. First, he filmed scenes in which his talent as a magician could be employed, making sure that the camera could see only what he wanted it to see. Amazing, amazing. But unlike the postman, practically anything stops the cameraman in the accomplishment of his rounds. In this case, rain. In those days, the sun was the only source of light for the movie makers. Méliès decided to build a glassed-in studio for the protection of his scenery, his performers, and his equipment. At the rear the studio was a stage, and the camera was fixed at the front, near the wall. The garden set. The boudoir of the princess. Previous to this, all movies had been shot realistically, outdoors, catching life in the raw. Now Méliès brought to the budding art the techniques of theater stagecraft, with moving backgrounds, trick settings, and complicated apparatus. One day in front of the opera, his film stuck momentarily in the camera. When it started again, a hearse had replaced the bus he was filming, and at the projection, it appeared as if by magic. Thus, by chance, Méliès discovered one of the basic gimmicks of trick photography. In 1901, Méliès produced The Man with the Rubber Head, using black backgrounds and double takes on the same film. In the first take, Méliès moves forward on the dolly. His head, seen against the black background, seems to get bigger. In the second take, only the scenery around the background and Méliès himself blowing up his own head is caught on the film, and this is the result when the two takes are combined. Méliès used his own Robert Houdin theater to show his films. In The Music Lover, as many as 9 different takes were used per frame to produce this effect. Many of the secrets of Méliès have died with him. Like many magicians, he didn't want to give away his whole bag of tricks. At the turn of the century, the street fairs and carnivals of France attracted great swarms of humanity. Méliès thought that he would find there a new source of spectators for the large number of films he was now producing.
Voyage dans la Lune! Entrez, mesdames, messieurs! Entrez par ici, entrez, mesdames, messieurs! N'hésitons pas! Entrez, mesdames, messieurs! Entrez! Magnifique! Par ici, mesdames, messieurs! Aujourd'hui...
But the public was skeptical. How could anyone present a trip to the moon? They didn't know that Méliès' imagination was so fantastic that he could keep the promise of his motto, the whole world within reach. The whole world, yes. The moon, the stars, and the planets too, all within reach. But for the owner of the tent, The whole venture was strictly speculation. He wanted proof, and only the public can judge the value of a show. And the public loved it. It was delighted like a child with a new toy. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. The owner of the tent show is now willing to pay for the right to show the films. But Méliès the businessman was not up to Méliès the artist, and the taste of success was soon to turn to ashes. But not before he was able to produce some more masterpieces, like the 400 Tricks of the Devil. Before the First War, the copyright laws of the world were not what they are now. This film, like many of his others, was copied and exploited by the rivals of Méliès with no financial return to its creator. Ruined by his imitators, squeezed out by his competitors, Méliès was finished by the war. And one day, bitter at his failure, he burned most of the celluloid children of his fancy, the last tragic joke of this first great movie maker. And now, our story ends once more, and we're almost back at the beginning, at the Gare Montparnasse. Madame Méliès is now 90 years old. Georges died in 1938, in the retreat for retired humorists where we first saw him 20 minutes ago. The little toy shop where he lived so many years with his tricks and his children has become a flower shop. And every once in a while, Madame Méliès comes here to remember and to buy a bunch of flowers for George. He used to love flowers so. Then she goes to Père Lachaise Cemetery, where he now rests. He never cared much for cemeteries. He didn't think they were in keeping with his style, his fancy, but he loved flowers so. And this is the end of the story I started to tell a little while ago. But the little waltz is still here, and I think perhaps you understand now why, without Georges Méliès, this movie, and many others, could never have been made.